Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. So I haven't done a video in 3 days. Been kind of busy. For one, I had to actually buy a car. My lease ended, so I needed to find something else. So I was busy doing that. And plus, luckily, we didn't have any news on the Bitcoin miners. Nothing really major happened other than the stock prices kept falling down this week for the majority of the miners. So we'll get into all that, and we'll get into some other things as well. But today we're just going to take a look at an article from Seeking Alpha where an author basically stated that you're better off owning Bitcoin than buying Cleanspark shares. We're going to debunk that. We're going to debunk it hard. And we're also going to take a look at obviously what happened with Bitcoin and the miners this past week, see how the performance of each compares to Bitcoin, and we'll see what's going on in the markets in general, see have we possibly bottomed out in Bitcoin also, okay? So we have a little bit to go over as always, but we'll get through it here. So as always, it's not financial advice for entertainment only. Do your own research, and I'm investing coins and companies for full disclosure. And let's take a look at the article here from Seeking Alpha, and we'll kind of go over the details and get into some of the things that he got right and some of the things that he got wrong, at least I think that way, okay? So this was Cleanspark. You'd be better off just owning Bitcoin by James S. Wood. And here's the summary of it. So Cleanspark is losing money at the current Bitcoin price. Even if you expect the price of Bitcoin to rise, I believe you'd be better off just owning Bitcoin directly. This is where I disagree with him. Cleanspark's direct mining costs are in the middle of the pack, meaning they don't have a competitive advantage. This is where I also don't really agree with him as well. You also have to take a look at other things, not just their cost of electricity or whatever it costs to mine a Bitcoin, but also their uptime and everything else. That all goes into it here. So let's just take a look at what he actually had to say here. So executive summary here. So in this article, I'll look at another Bitcoin miner, Cleanspark, and using a different framework. This framework is if you are bullish on the price of Bitcoin, would you be better off buying shares in the Cleanspark or just buying Bitcoin itself? I believe that in almost any scenario, investor would be better off just buying Bitcoin. This is where I disagree with him. So he did an article prior to that about Riot, and he got a lot of pushback, I guess, from the community. So he thought he'd do one on Cleanspark and do a different way of valuing them going forward. So Bitcoin miner valuation framework, there's 3 ways that he talks about that you can basically value those guys. The first is cash and Bitcoins they hold on their balance sheet. Second is their current deployed hash rate. And finally is their ability to grow their hash rate going forward, which is all fine. I don't have a problem with that. He does talk about some of the cost to mine, things like that, which is fine. Those all look pretty good numbers there. And then how much is 16 exahash worth today, which is what Cleanspark's going to be getting to by the end of this year. That's their target for this year. Is to get to 16 exahash. They're currently at 9 exahash right now. And he's using something here that I will agree with. I think this is a good kind of estimate as far as the network hash rate growth for Bitcoin. So he's looking at it in January 2022. Cleanspark, they mined 145 Bitcoins per deployed exahash. So this is looking at their BTC per exahash efficiency. By July 2023, this had declined to 64 Bitcoins per exahash. This is a 4% compounded monthly rate of decline. For the rest of this article, I will assume the mining efficiency continues to decline at a rate of around 4% per month, which I think is pretty fair. The only thing is, when he talks about the halving event coming up here, he does not talk about the fact that when that does happen, some of the less efficient miners, some of them could be like the S17s from Bitmain, some of the other ones that are below 100 terahash per 100 terahash miners or below will have a lot more difficult time being profitable. And there's still a lot of those miners out there. Those will probably get turned off because they will be not profitable at that point. Meaning what's going to happen when that happens is the network hash rate is actually going to decrease, meaning making it more profitable for the guys that do exist that have a better efficiency rating on the miners above 100 terahash and more. And then you also take a look at the joules per terahash overall rating or average for each miner. So Cleanspark, Riot, whatever those might be, as long as they're below 30 joules per terahash is where I'm kind of expecting things to be kind of the cutoff point where you're going to be profitable and not come having. They'll do a lot better, especially with the network hash rate coming down because older miners are getting unplugged, excuse me, because they're no longer profitable. This will actually help improve their bottom line, improve their revenue. Okay. And so he goes in here. We must also consider the Bitcoin halving event, which is expected to happen towards the end of April 2024. Excuse me. This will cut Bitcoin's mined per exahash in half overnight, which is true. We agree with that, and everything is fine. But it doesn't talk about previous halving cycles, what happened. Each time something like this has happened, like I said, the older miners are just going to shut off their machines because they're not going to be profitable, so it doesn't make any sense for them. So that's going to decrease the network hash rate going forward, or at least for time being until things start catching up and Bitcoin starts going back up in value. Okay, but it's still going to be tough for those older miners to become profitable unless maybe Bitcoin's like at 100,000, 150,000 and then they might plug those in for a little bit longer to get as much money as they can out of them. Okay. So he's going to analyze three scenarios here. If Bitcoin was at 26,000, 50,000, 100,000, and those are pretty low estimates for Bitcoin, where I think it could go after the halving event. I think Bitcoin's going to be probably closer to 175, 200,000. Some are saying that Bitcoin could go as high as 300,000. We'll see if we get there. I'd rather be conservative and go with 175 to 200,000. I think that's a pretty easy get for Bitcoin. So here's what you have to say. If the Bitcoin price is 26,000, you can profitably operate until the halving event, which will yield 56 million of cumulative gross profit. Okay, so and then here's a chart of it. So he's basically saying from this, you'll get to 56 million. And then after the halving event, your revenue is going to come down. But it should be a much faster drop, I think, than just a slow, steady decline, because you're going to get cut in half. So it should be, you go to April, you get cut in half to 26,000 or something like that, to 28,000 or 28 million. And then you continue to have a decline that way. But here's the other thing. If a lot of the older miners get unplugged, that could extend this out even more and make it even more, well, at least for the short time being, kind of go up a little bit here in the months afterwards, okay? Then he looks at if Bitcoin price was at 50,000. You can be profitable, operate until May 2024, which will yield around 260 million of cumulative gross profit. And you can see the chart here. The same thing would happen here. Revenue would come down half of that, roughly. So he's saying 50, you'd get to across, 260 million, roughly, which is still pretty good. But then he's also not taking into account what do the miners usually act as compared to Bitcoin. So the miners usually act as a leverage play on Bitcoin. We've seen this in the past, and I can show this to you guys in the chart here in a second. But basically, when Bitcoin goes up 5 times or goes up 500%, the miners will go up 1,500%, 2,000%, some even go up 5,000%. So they are a leverage play on Bitcoin. And I'll show this to you guys here right now. And it's actually going to be right there. So this is, excuse me, this is after the halving event that we had in 2020. You can see this little line here, this red line. This is when we had the halving event. And this is comparing Bitcoin against Marathon, Riot, Hut, Hive, and Bitfarms, which were the miners that were operating at that time. And you can see here that Marathon went up 5,964% after the halving event, where Riot went up 2,233%, Hive went up 1,317%, Bitfarm went up 1,115%, Hut 8 went up 615%, and Bitcoin at that time went up 167%. So, like I said, a leverage play against Bitcoin. He's not taking that into account either. If you're just looking at the bare numbers of what there could be generating in, and you maybe do like a 20 multiple on them, okay, maybe that would translate to not maybe making the same. Well, even then, I think you're still wrong, because if you take the 20 multiple just on a conservative estimate on their revenue, at 50K, they're making 260 million. You do that times, let's just do 250, cut that revenue in a little bit. You're still looking at possibly for them being around valued at what? 2 billion possibly, something like that, right? So it's still 2 billion from where they are right now. That would be a 1 point, well, they're at 600 something. That'd be almost 3x from where they are right now, right? And Bitcoin would only be going up basically 2x, right? So that's kind of how you see things shape up here. So if Bitcoin went to 100,000, you can profitably operate until September of 2025, which will yield 814 million of cumulative gross profit. Take away some of the expenses that they have for electricity, things like that. At that point, you're maybe down to, I'd say, let's just say, with Bitcoin being that high, your profitability is going to be much higher at that rate. But even if it's, let's just say it's 50%, right? So you're going to be at 400,000 or 400 million at that point. Multiply that times 20, you get basically 8 billion market cap. At that point, that would be, what is that going to be? They're at 600 some right now, 800. So let's do the math here on my calculator really quick. So if we do that, 800, or there we go, divide that by the 670, and we're looking at basically 11x. So increasing it where Bitcoin would only increase 4x, right? There's a difference. That's why I say this is not apples to apples for him. Then he goes into, obviously, some of their other cash, their assets, things like that, which doesn't really coincide with this. But here's his verdict. Unless Cleanspark can find some way to dramatically reduce its electricity costs, I don't see any scenario in which you would be better off owning Cleanspark than just owning Bitcoin. Right? So that's where he's flawed. He's not looking at the actual multiplier effect that you have with the miners as you would just owning with other companies, right? If you looked at it for like Microsoft or something like that, well then yeah, you might be better off owning Bitcoin. But for the miners, as they are a leverage play, I think it's better for investors. Right now is a pretty good time. We may still come down in price. I like to dollar cost average in. I've been dollar cost averaging since, oh gosh, last year, beginning of last year. So, right, dollar cost average in. This is a long-term cycle that we go through, and we're just getting close to the halving cycle again, where the bull run is going to start happening after probably next year, sometime right around this time, and then we'll get into 2025 with a nice bull run there. So it's a long process, but trying to catch the bottom, you're not going to catch it. So, okay. But basically what I'm saying is this is kind of flawed thinking. You got to think that Bitcoin miners are a leverage play against Bitcoin. And just like you pointed out here, Bitcoin going to 100,000, it's basically a 4x for Bitcoin, whereas the valuation for Cleanspark being halved at 400 million times the 20, you get basically $8 billion valuation market cap on them. And that's kind of where we're looking at for right now from where they are right now. Okay. So be careful what you read out there. Not everybody is as well informed, educated. I wouldn't say educated, but I would say just well informed on what the cycles are in Bitcoin and in the miners. And we've had previous halving events. We've seen the cycles that have happened. We're pretty certain that that's going to happen again, but there's no guarantee with it. Like investing in anything else, you got to do your own due diligence and look into things. But this is kind of what I'm seeing right now. Okay. All right, I'm rambling on. Let's get into the Bitcoin miners, see how they did last week against Bitcoin. It wasn't a great week for us, unfortunately. And maybe Bitcoin is actually getting close to the bottom here, at least for the time being. But we'll see. Okay, so as always on this chart, we take a look at where the miners are from the 52-week lows and from how far away they are from the 52-week highs. So core is still way up there, as you can see. I'm not going to go through all these numbers. You guys can take a look at it. The worst performers are still Sphere, 3D, and Mawson. Best performers are Core, Cypher, Bit Digital, Iris, TerraWolf, Marathon, Bitfarms. And then start getting closer to the 200% increases as Riot, DigiHost, BitDeer, Hut8, Argo, CleanSpark, Hive, and DMG. Those have all performed better than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's only up 67%. And then as far as how far the miners are away from the 52-week highs, BitDeer is pretty close. It's only 5.1% away from that. Bitcoin's at 18% right now. It has went down a little bit more than it was prior weeks. And some of the other miners are around the 40% range, right around there. Some are a little bit higher. Mawson, 90%. Mawson is getting definitely decimated here this past week with their production update and their quarterly filings as well. That didn't help out. Stock dropped because of that. Okay. Now, as far as we're looking at the performance against Bitcoin for the miners this past week, we can see that Bitcoin was actually down just 0.01%. I track it Friday to Friday. And we had Sphere 3D was actually up 29% this past week, which was surprising. BitDeer was up 5.34%. And then the rest of the miners were actually down tremendously. You can see Mawson here was down 54.95% on the week. And that's because, like I said, the quarterly results and the production update. Okay, DigiHost was down 26% also. Then CleanSpark was down 12.31%. And then everybody else was down a little bit less from that. So those are the way things shaped up for the 1 week. As we look into the 4 weeks and 8 weeks, you can see that we're starting to be more in the red here than we have been in the past. And that might be a good thing because that might be a good kind of pressure relief valve happening right now on all of these guys here. So let's take a look at that. That's descending. I want to do this ascending. Descending, okay. Let's see here. So from 4 weeks ago, Bitcoin is actually down 10.41%. Sphere is down 6.95%, and BitDeer is actually up 52%, up from 4 weeks ago. Mawson down 67%, DigiHost down 42%, and you can see the rest here as well. It's pretty much in the red here for all those guys. If we look at 8 weeks ago as well on this one, we can see here that Bitcoin is actually down 14%, and everybody else, except for DMG and BitDeer, has done worse than Bitcoin. Mawson being down 77% as well. And you can see this kind of multiplier effect, the leverage play on Bitcoin. You can see it here when Bitcoin's going down. This happens the same thing as Bitcoin's going up. Bitcoin goes up 2x. These guys go up 2.5, 3, 4x, whatever it might be. And the same happens in reverse. And lastly, we'll take a look at 12 weeks here really quick. This one and that one. So from 12 weeks ago, we can see that Bitcoin is down 1.63%. The following miners have actually done better. BitDeer has done a really good job here, up 177%. Core is up 94%. Taro 42%. Cypher up 29. Cleanspark up 20. Hut 818. Bitfarms 15. Hive 15. Iris 14. Marathon 12. DMG 10. And then Riot just 0.39. So those have all done better. And then you can see the ones that have done worse. Sphere 3D, Argo, BitDigital, DigiHost, and Mawson being down the most, 81%. So that's obviously not good here on that time frame. Okay. And when we look at the whole number sheet here, we can see that 1 week ago, 4 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, we're starting to be more in the red. We can see the same thing happening here, where we're starting to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 6 weeks in the red almost. You could kind of count 3 weeks ago as being kind of even. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 miners being up, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, so we're still in the red. So we had basically 9 or 10 miners in the red at that point. So we're basically 6 weeks in the red right now with the miners and Bitcoin for the most part. Okay, we've had that before. We've seen it over here. This was back last year before we basically bottomed out in Bitcoin at the beginning of the year. We saw we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and probably could go here to get 6 weeks even, where we were in the red, and then Bitcoin finally started to go back up. Okay, now looking at Bitcoin, where is it gonna go from here? It's tough to say right now, but based on the RSI that I'm seeing here, and let me see here. I want to go over here. We're just gonna turn these guys off here. Make sure we get rid of these guys from going back then. And let's take a look at where we are right now. So currently, we've had obviously the Fed raising rates, and each time the Fed has raised rates, Bitcoin has come down, but it has eventually came back up. We've had this happen multiple times here, and this time around was no different. It just took a little bit longer. It was trying to possibly, well, I don't know what I was trying to do, but it was definitely holding its own for a while there before it finally dropped here. And we have dropped down to the 26,000 mark right now, and we've been kind of battling with that. I originally thought that the support line was going to be at around 26,300. It's turned out to be 26,000, so it's up by $300 there. But nonetheless, we are bouncing off of that support, or at least holding that support pretty tightly here right now. We have dropped below it. We have gone above it as well, but we are always going back to that 26,000 mark. If we look at the RSI here, if I bring this back up, we can see that we're still way oversold on the RSI on the 1 day, on the daily chart. On the weekly chart, if we look at it, we're back down to where we were here at 48. This was 40, well, 45, you could say, I guess, right around here. This was, if we go far enough back here, we were much higher in price on the weekly here on that one. But that's going all the way back to basically April of 2022. So this was when Bitcoin just started going down in price. You can see here after we peaked at 69,000, right? So that definitely gives us more room to run up here going forward. And if we look at the 4-hour chart, you can see that Bitcoin right now is kind of trending sideways as it is on the 4-hour chart, always returning back to that 26,000 mark as well. RSI isn't too bad. We're kind of in the middle here. No, not oversold, not overbought. And you can see the same thing here on the 1-hour chart. And then we keep going back down to this 26,000 mark here. If we look at some of the peaks here, let's see here. I mean, we obviously bottomed out here last week on Thursday the 17th. It looks like, and then price has continued to come down from there, but it basically leveled out at around here, and we're still up a little bit higher here. Meaning that I think until we get some kind of reversal pattern happening here where we see the RSI going down, price going up, we're going to be probably trending this way for a while. Don't know how much longer we're going to be trending that. August is almost over with. We got a couple more days. We got, what, 5 more days in August before it's over with. And then we're into September already, which is unfreaking believable. The time is flying so fast. We'll have obviously the minor updates for August numbers, and then we'll have another month to go, and we'll be done with Q3 already. So it's just my mind is blown how fast things are moving here. Okay, but other things that we want to see with Bitcoin is obviously, like I said, the reversal pattern happening here where RSI is going down, Bitcoin price is going up. Other than that, like I said, I think we're way oversold here, and Bitcoin. Plan B put out a video last week or a week and a half ago about Bitcoin and the RSI. He says that we are basically oversold on the daily. If you go all the way back down to the pandemic, which happened back in March of 2020, That's how low we are right now. That's where it bottomed out then. And then this is kind of where we are right now as well. So I think the trajectory is going to be going up, but it might take a while for us. Okay. All right. A couple other things that we have to talk about here. Still waiting on a couple miners to provide their quarterly results. Those include Argo is going to be doing it next week, I believe. DMG is also going to be doing it next week. And then we're waiting on Iris Energy. If they don't provide it by next week, they're going to be excluded out of the quarterly metrics that we do on the miners, which will be coming up probably at the end of next week if we get all the data in before then. But I'll give Iris until Thursday of next week to get that data out. If they don't, they're obviously going to be omitted from that. Okay. And that's it. Like I said, we'll have to see what happens with Bitcoin over the weekend, going into next week. Right now, it's just trading sideways. It's no man's land right now. So we'll see. All right, that's it. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. Hopefully get some more updates. There is an update from Hut 8 on their prospectus, S4, I believe. I'll have to dig into it some more to see if there's any changes in it that are major or anything like that. That's my to-do list for this weekend. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, spreadsheets going to be available with my Patreon members. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. All right, I'm out of here. Bye.